So I think build your brand authentically and engage with your audience.
Call me if they need anything. Why are you messaging me on Facebook? And besides, we don't have Gucci in Zambia, so it's not really the target market for me.
I always say it's important to be able to say no to a bag.
See my bed and bougie. She wanna drink on Tuesday. And shawty sipping on a Bombay. A long way from cooler. See my bed and bougie. She wanna drink on Tuesday.
Nice to me, I'm in your head, I invest. That's a short-term fee, got it locked, I'm the best. Well, at least that's what I think. Give me props when I rap, zip you up when I leave.
Big bag, I'm in it, I get it, I got it. Going north, not south, cause I rise when I rap. Bars on flex, let me show you what I'm about. Young black boy from the Ville, I get my city clout. You know singing and rapping till your bra show you back.
I'm with my friend! I'm so happy I get to feature. Asia looks so pretty, like, can we?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever Unplugged event brought to you by Thai Media. The complimentary drinks have been served by Lotus Flower. We'd like to shout out to them. There is free Wi-Fi courtesy of Liquid Telecom, and thank you all for joining. As you can see, we have a star-studded panel today. I'll start from my left, moving towards the right, and we have Christina Sakala. She is, arguably our most famous model here in Zambia. She's everywhere. There's no billboard you haven't seen when she's not there. And she's regularly known as Tintin, and she recently became the brand ambassador for Amarula Zambia. You can do better than that, come on. And next up, right next to her, the only male on our panel today is Mr. Mukuka, the face of house music in Zambia. There's no house music, there's no Mukuka. He's been dropping hit after hit this year. I didn't even know I liked house music. He dropped today, in fact. How many of you listened to it today? These are the real fans. See your real fans today. The first male panelist for Unplugged. Come on, give him a round of applause. And right next to him, we have our international panelist, arguably the biggest content creator in South Africa. She is Mihlali Ndamase. This lady needs no introduction. I'm sure we all know who she is. She was the first South African face of Daniel Wellington. She has her own foundation, and she just recently founded Malachite, which is a beautician platform. She does so many things, YouTube, she's everywhere. I would just like to give a big round of applause to our international panelists. Next up, we have Zambia's biggest actress, Mwaka Mugala. She's the star of the hit telenovela on Zambezi Magic called Zuba, and she also has her own YouTube channel as well. She does content creation as well. And ladies and gentlemen, it's not TV in Zambia, and it's not Mwaka Mugala. Give her a round of applause, please, as well.
Thank you, Engo. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming here tonight. We truly appreciate this. Honestly, I think he's pretty much said everything. Many of you may or may not know, but besides acting, I also used to read the news. I was a news anchor, news presenter, television presenter, on and off stage. And I'm a visual artist. I paint, I draw, I sculpt, and I'm just a lover of all things media and art.
Is it on? Okay. Evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for having me. The introduction's everything, but my name is Mihlali Ndamase, the award-winning digital Sorry about that. Yes, and what else can I say? I do YouTube, Instagram content. I'm also on Twitter, and I will also made it onto the Forbes 30 under 30 list, class of 2021. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm the only male here, so that's an honor to be amongst these beautiful, successful women and all of you here tonight. I guess the introduction was sufficient. My name's Mukuka. A lot of you know me. I'm a house music producer and DJ. My career really revolves around music. I do have plenty of brand partnerships, specifically with Budweiser and now with Beefeater Gin as well. A lot of content is created around these partnerships. In general, just marketing stuff in smart ways. It's quite obvious that posting a link to a song doesn't market itself well enough. You kind of need to build a story, build some fun little thing around it, some eye candy, play games around the marketing of your product.
It's just a house full of baddies, badodos, baddest badodos. You guys look amazing. Thank you for taking time out to come meet us. So aside from modeling and brand influencing, I own my own cosmetic line, Tintin Cosmetics. We're rebranding and we will be relaunching on the 28th of January. Stay tuned. I'm also a TV host on Honey TV's Yes Ndio Benny, which is a proposal show. So if anybody is looking to get married, let me know after the show and I'll hook you up. And yeah, just being a lover of love, I guess, and life and living. We hope you guys enjoy this presentation.
So like, could you just elaborate, I guess, on the kind of, like, how to contextualize platforms for what it is you do?
Because when I started using the platform, it was very much for banter, and also I find that Twitter can be a very toxic space. So I really limit, in terms of work, what I put on there. But with Instagram and YouTube, I have two different uses for them. So my Instagram platform, obviously visually appealing, but I feel like there isn't much knowledge someone can get about product or a lot of information from Instagram, because reality is people don't like reading. So if you're putting up a very long caption, just think about how many people are actually going to read the entire caption, whereas YouTube is amazing for giving out information. If you are reviewing a product, for example, you can get into the details, and also people love to see demonstrations as well, to see how this works. Does it really work? Is it effective? How do these clothes fit on her, like a try-on haul, for example? So those are the two platforms that I use, and I feel like they support each other very, very well, because if you do have a high following on Instagram, you can always drive traffic to your YouTube. When you upload a new YouTube video, you then notify your Instagram followers as well that you put up content.
Well, I've studied my audiences as well. Each platform has a different response to the kind of content I post. And it took a while for me to understand, but I finally did understand. You know, TikTok is a little bit of a goofy side of me. You know, people can see different things, different sides to me. Whereas YouTube, I specifically post things around beauty, health, and lifestyle. And I like to use it as a way to send out proper information to people. Facebook does have a bit more of branded content on there. And once in a while I will post, you know, personal things about me, but I think I've left it more for branded things, because I see that there's a lot of interaction there. And people like it when I do interact. But the responses to personal pictures, for example, on Facebook compared to IG, for example, are completely different. And so sometimes I won't post certain pictures on IG, on Facebook rather, that I will post on IG, because I've also been able to distinguish how different audiences respond. Twitter, I have the least followers, and so because of that, I tend to avoid doing a lot of brand endorsements on Twitter, because like she said, you know, Twitter's a very different environment, and so if you don't understand how people respond, yeah, you're laughing, how people respond to tweets, you know, you almost have to be very, very careful what you post about. If you're not socially conscious, if you're not an activist, if you're not talking about things that really are affecting people at that moment, people will sort of look at you in a certain way. And so it's really just about being careful about what you post on Twitter. And so being able to distinguish how different audiences respond on these different platforms has also helped me identify what kind of content to post on each of those platforms.
So for me, I'll start off by saying I haven't been on Facebook in 10 years. Little backstory, I had a photo shoot and the photo was quote unquote gorgeous, but a little too much skin. And so when I posted it on Facebook, there was a lot of backlash. We all know how sad Facebook is. Nobody ever takes anything really seriously, and it's all about cover up or whatever, but come on, free the nipple once in a while. I'm never going back. Well, the whole duration that I was on Facebook, I never got any proper job. So all my endorsements, all my big gigs, all my traveling jobs, influencer gigs have come strictly from Instagram. And so I've realized that that's my strength, and that's where I'm the most active. If you go to my Instagram now, everything is sort of organized. You will not see what I ate yesterday. You will not know what my sister looks like, because that's my portfolio. It's my profile. If Gucci one day decides to look up Tintin or the Tintin, I don't want them to see what I ate 2 days ago or who my sister is. I want them to go straight into my work, 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 work. This is her profile, this is a side view, this is who she's worked with. So I also got that tip when I had gone to work in SA a few years ago, and the photographer said, you take beautiful photos, but I have to keep scrolling to see something that's actually appealing. So I came back from that gig and I cleared up my Instagram. Twitter is great, guys, to be very honest with you.
Not much.
No?
Not really.
I love it. I have been dragged, but that's life, guys. Everybody gets dragged. I think I'll be dragged 3-4 times. It's part of character building.
Hands up if you've been dragged before.
You know, who hasn't been dragged? Who's been dragged on Twitter? It's like, oh, it's typical. It's Sunday Z Twitter. You know, today it's you, tomorrow it's somebody else. So
finally, these platforms are available in Africa, and specifically Zambia. South Africa received Spotify about 2-3 years ago. We only received it this year. So our numbers are still growing, the culture is still growing. Typically Zambian people like to get music for free. It's not something they're used to buying and something they're used to paying for, even though they can clearly afford it because they can all afford beer, right? So it's not very expensive. The Spotify subscription is about $9.99 a month, $10 a month, which now is about 175 kwacha per month for all the music in the world. So I keep very close track of how my Spotify and Apple Music is growing. And I'm in a bit of a weird position where when I look at my Spotify statistics, most of my listeners come from South Africa, the United States, the Netherlands, and Germany. And that's very interesting information for me. But it's hard sometimes to understand why that information is. Is it that my music is not as relatable to fellow Zambians? Or is it that not enough Zambians are on Spotify to represent a significant percentage of my following?
they'll call me if they need anything. Why are you messaging me on Facebook? And besides, we don't have Gucci in Zambia, so it's not really the target market for me and where I'm thinking of taking my brand and my modeling career. So I'm not focused on Facebook because it's going to end in a meme or in a joke and then that's it. The followers, the numbers are good, the numbers are great, but numbers must produce something at the end of the day, and it wasn't doing that for me.
Another challenge, I think even for the ladies here, maybe not so much for you in South Africa, but in Zambia we lack brand representation of like the actual brands. Thank you. We don't have Adidas, we don't have Nike, we don't even have Mercedes-Benz, I think. Imagine. We have these distributors that represent large groups of premium brands. So for you to get the attention of Gucci, Louis Vuitton, it's almost impossible. It's not impossible because marketing is marketing, numbers are numbers, but we don't have them locally. So you're trying to get the attention of a designer in South Africa to take you seriously in another market that might not be their market. Why should they then endorse you in Zambia when their focus is South Africa and their budgets are allocated for the South African market? So that's a big issue that we face here.
Media person, and so as I started to grow my brand, I was advised many times that I had to be active on social media, I had to grow my numbers, I had to be more interactive with people out there. And so I've definitely had to adapt accordingly, according to the response that I get. So sometimes I will post content and I'll notice that it's not getting as much interaction as I would if I posted something else. And so that has also helped me categorize exactly what to post, when to post, how often to post. I still struggle personally, but when I do get ideas, when I do get inspiration, then I will go all in and just make sure to give my brand more relevance. So
as you mentioned numbers, like Mr. Mukuka, you got into the fact that it's a numbers game. How do you feel about, it goes to all of you I guess, a large audience versus an engaged audience? Because we now have situations these days where people have, 10 million followers, but not all 10 million are gonna like your pictures and everything. So how do you feel about a large audience versus an engaging audience?
So just as she mentioned earlier, a lot of people don't like to read. So sometimes you will post something and you put a caption that has important information. Say for example, you're speaking about the brand that you're sharing, or you're doing a giveaway, but they will focus on the picture itself. So sometimes you post a pretty picture, yes, it's nice, and the comments will tell you exactly how it's reached the audience. So people are just like, oh, nice picture, nice picture, nice picture, you look good, skincare tips, hair care tips, yada, yada, yada. But they're missing the main essence of the post.
Say there's apps or platforms that they use to check the percentage or the number of your real followers and those that you bought. So you're actually harming your brand by buying followers, because then once they see that, oh, this person's buying followers, they're most likely not going to want to work with you. So I think build your brand authentically and engage with your audience as well. That encourages them to engage with you. When people see that, oh, she liked my comment, or oh, she said thank you to a comment. I know it's very difficult. It's difficult to respond to every single person, but that little bit of engagement makes a difference, because it increases your engagement when you then post content. And you don't want people to now not engage with, especially your sponsored content.
How do you basically decide this is a brand that aligns with what I'm trying to represent? Mr. Mukuka, you also work with a number of brands. So how do you guys come to that decision to say, this is a brand that aligns with me and my values and what it is I'm going for, versus they're paying me a fat stack of cash and let me just cash in, you know what I mean?
When it comes to picking brand partnerships, I would encourage you to first, as you're building your personal brand, is to understand your niche, or to choose a niche that you want to specialize in. Yes, your brand can be multifaceted, but what is the core of your brand? Is it beauty? Is it fashion? Is it music? And then once you know your niche, you need to then understand your audience as well. What do they respond to? That's very important when you're choosing the brands that you work with. You can't have predominantly a young audience and then only work with luxury brands. Young people can't afford luxury brands. So it's important to understand your audience, and also be authentic in your partnerships. Partner with brands that you would use if you were not getting a check. For example, I love Colgate. I use Colgate, the whitening one. If they were to hit me up for a campaign, I'd definitely say yes, because it's a brand I'm familiar with as well. And that also helps with messaging now in your campaign and the delivery of your content, you know? Be authentic and always maintain authenticity, because you owe that to your audience. You're gonna lose your credibility and the respect that they have for you if you're not transparent. So I always say it's important to be able to say no to a bag. Even if it's a very good bag, you must be able to say no. And if that's something that you start early in your career, you're gonna have that discipline once you've grown a big brand and you're being offered a very nice check.
When you know yourself, when you know what you want to align with, when you know what you want to represent, it then becomes easy for you to say no, even if they're offering you a lot of money. The audience is not dumb. I will tell you that for a fact. So the audience will be able to tell, like, okay, here she's just doing it just because of the money. Here, okay, this is really something she's passionate about. Because as an influencer, you're not necessarily just selling a product, you're selling a lifestyle. You're telling people how they can actually use this product, and that is how people will be able to align with what you're selling. If, say, for example, you work with an alcoholic brand, you're not just going to say, oh, buy this, it's good, it tastes good, you can make cocktails with it. No, show pictures of you having fun while taking that drink, and you say, look, I love this drink, it doesn't give me hangovers, and so on and so forth.
There's no going back, you know, when it comes to ethical issues. So if you endorse an alcohol brand, and then 10 years down the line, there is a non-alcoholic beverage that is considering you as an ambassador, your decision to have endorsed that alcohol brand in the past will affect you. Or tobacco brand, or some other kind of drug. You really have to be careful. More than be careful, just be yourself. What would you actually do in real life? Do you drink? If you do drink, then I think you should feel comfortable endorsing alcohol brands. If you don't drink, maybe you shouldn't.
These days, we have to be politically correct in what we do, what we post, what we say. You have to not offend the LGBTQ community. You have to be sort of politically stable. You can't show that you're supporting this party or that party. You have to be racially balanced in your post, because I could put up a post and say, and you know, there's gonna be a brand that's owned by a white person that's gonna find that offensive, and they're never gonna wanna work with me. I could put up a brand I could put up a photo, or work with a brand, or post a photo or something that's going to offend somebody. So it's very difficult to be who you are, because also if you've got a smart mouth, it might get you in trouble. But then look at Cardi B, you know, she's got a quick tongue, she doesn't care, but she's authentic, and brands follow her because she's authentic. Rude as she may be sometimes, catty as she may be sometimes, that's what some people want. So it really comes down to who are you as a person. The bag must be secured, but sleeping peacefully at the end of the day is great also.
It was quite negative. I got dragged on Twitter because I was tweeting like any normal person who is not a public figure. I basically tweeted during the looting in South Africa. I tweeted, when are we looting Merc? Then I put my phone down, I was like, I'm gonna make breakfast, child. I picked up my phone, it was a mess, it was so bad, guys. I was being dragged on TikTok. People were making TikToks on how irresponsible our content creators are in this country. Look at this tweet, how is this your guys' role model? But I'm grateful that happened, as unfortunate as it was, considering how much I love the brand, and it probably has destroyed my relationship with the brand. But I'm grateful it happened because it taught me that I have to be a lot more responsible in the content that I put out. Yes, a lot of people were joking about looting stores, but I'm not allowed to joke. There's people who are genuinely harmed by that. So it was very irresponsible on my part. And then the moment that I realized I made it was when I was contacted by YouTube, the international team, and I attended the summit in Paris as well as YouTube Black in Atlanta.
I don't know why people thrive in negativity. It's like you say, maybe some people just want to get a response out of you. I remember this one time, the first time there was a rumor about me. I'm sorry, it was hilarious. So I think this was in season 2, and I had gained a bit of weight. So I did have a little, a little situation going on with my stomach. So someone posted a screen grab from the show because I was wearing this dress that was like really, really tight. And then they put like a whole news story about how I was pregnant and the producers wanted to fire me. We differed and everything. And this is while we were shooting for season 2. And so I'm like, oh, you guys are firing me? I didn't know, And I remember calling my manager. I'm like, can we sue? Like, this is not right. This is defamation. They're giving me a bad reputation and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, first time, huh? So after that, I think I realized that I had to just step back and not respond. But there are times, if someone says something funny under one of my posts, I will respond, I'll just say something, like just put them in their place, just like pat, just to let them know that I'm nice, but I'm also human.
One of the biggest challenges is, well, fortunately in South Africa, we have a lot of the brands have companies there, but they all report to the international client. They give the go-ahead. They sign off on who gets picked for which campaign and how it works. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges is I feel like there can be a lot of red tape around how your content is created, which then strips you of creative freedom. And that is something that can easily affect how your audience relates to the content, because realistically, how they operate abroad can be different to here. We need to be able to create nostalgic moments for our audience, things that they can relate to because we're all in one country. So I'd say that's one of the biggest challenges, yeah.
I think right now we can go into Q&A from the audience.
My question is for all of the panelists, but maybe Mihlali can start first. We talked earlier about responsibility, and obviously you're a lifestyle and a content creator, a great one at that. I'm a huge fan, kind of creepy, but... Security! After the question, please. You can drag me out. But yeah, you've worked with big brands, you're working with Fashion Nova now, and you mentioned relatability, but at the same time responsibility. You're obviously selling a lifestyle. You have a vlog in Cape Town, or you go to the Kruger and you spend, a couple of days there, you go to some spa, and it's an aspirational lifestyle. All of us are trying to sell this aspirational lifestyle. How do you find that balance without making people feel bad about themselves or making people feel inadequate? Even with beauty, you're selling these products, you're selling MAC or you're selling Maven or whatever.
I personally like to not only focus on luxury, for example, because it's all about understanding your audience. So once you understand your audience, you then know how to speak to them. So with my audience, I'm not going to only now be promoting Louis Vuitton, for example. I know that I do have a young audience as well, even though I also have a mature crowd. So I like to find ways to make my brand more relatable by also promoting products or services or brands that I know are accessible to my audience. That's how I feel like I maintain a relationship with them. And also the way that you communicate when you are promoting these things. I never try to portray myself as someone who's better than anybody else. I'm just showing you my lifestyle, what I enjoy. Oh, I enjoyed going to Cape Town and I stayed at here, you know. I'm not trying to be like, oh no, I will never stay there, or oh no, I'm not gonna go to the ghetto. And I think also it's important to be able to adjust to different environments, you know. And the nice thing about being a content creator, just to touch on your point, you were saying that your audience can know Tintin, but they don't have to know Christina. With being a blogger, your audience want to know you. Yes, they fall in love with your craft, but what keeps them coming back is the person behind the brand. So I must be able to show myself there in Santon having sushi, but also when I go home, I try not to share too much about my personal life, but I also like to let people into that side of my life on, okay, I'm going to Xoxo to see my grandmother, I'm from a small town, this is where I was raised, you know? So it's just about being relatable and maintaining authenticity.
Asked what you guys were talking about earlier about knowing when to let go of a bag. So how do you get to that point where like, I know my worth, like this bag isn't worth it, or I shouldn't be accepting this pay or whatever. So when do you get to that point? Like how do you know?
I think it's a bit twofold. I always ask myself this question: if I wasn't going to get paid for this, would I do it? If there wasn't this many commas in that check, would I do it? And would I be fine doing it? And would I be okay with bearing the consequences of doing it? Because what you do will come back to you positively and negatively sometimes. Peaceful sleep is very important. If you're okay going to bed every night, working with the brand and securing the bag, then do it. But to add on, sure, my point has gone. I've worked with brands that I still work with because we developed a rapport and they respected my craft, they respected my work, they didn't treat me like I was desperate for their money. And so even over the years as I've worked with them, they give me a larger scope of work and then the paycheck increases because they've seen what I can do for their brand. Whereas there are other brands that want something from you, but they don't even know what they want. So you're trying to negotiate with them. First of all, they don't want to meet your demands. And then they keep asking for so many things from you. But when you ask them to meet you halfway at least, then it becomes difficult to do my work. So from experience, especially working with a management team, I find that it's very important to have a team around you that you can trust.
I was in love with MAC. I loved MAC Cosmetics a lot. The makeup school I went to, we had a MAC kit. So when I started as a content creator, I built a relationship with MAC, and people thought I was a MAC ambassador. But I can sit here and tell you right now, I didn't receive one check from them, not a single check. And that's the thing about content. Most of the time when you're starting out, you're gonna have to do trade exchanges. But with those trade exchanges, I always say be mindful of the value. Yes, you're not getting money, but what is this brand partnership gonna do for me in the long run? Is there value in it? Are they able to maybe support my other ventures? For example, I do master classes. Even now with the makeup brands that I work with, I'm like, okay, you guys want me on this campaign, but Beauty and the Beat is coming up. Will you then be able to put product towards my masterclass, or at least money towards my masterclass? So yeah, I think that's very important, building valuable relationships. And also when it comes to knowing your worth, if somebody else can pay you to curate your content because they see that the quality of the work that you're putting out is worth it, you need to get to a point where you don't let anybody else tell you that you should be working for free, especially if they're adding absolutely no value to your brand. If you're good at something, don't do it for free.
Okay. Hi everyone up there, specifically Mihlali as well. I just wanted to say manifestation is real because you were on my vision board just as an aspiration with no idea that you'd be here. But I have two questions. One is for you and one is for Mukuka, because I think we are in a similar situation. So Mihlali, I wanted to find out obviously you've been on YouTube and you've been content creating for a really long time, but what moment do you think was like your pivot? Where did you change your content? Because obviously I've been watching your channel for a long time. I know you were doing lots of makeup, and then now you do more you do makeup, but you do more fun stuff and vlogs and stuff. So at what point do you think did you pivot where it made your career switch to a point where you could be a brand ambassador for almost anything, like you became a celebrity basically. So from just a YouTuber, I'd like to know what you did, what was your thought process before you pivoted? And then for Mukuka, my situation is the same. I have over 70,000 subscribers on YouTube, but probably maybe one person in this room knows who I am because 0.something% of my viewers are here. So I wanted to know how you deal with brand deals from other countries because every single brand you have done has been out of this country and they have no representation here. So how do you deal with companies that will say, oh, we want to work with you, and then they find out you're in Zambia and they're like, oh, we're not working with creators there, or can you just work with something for our page? How do you find a way to bridge the gap or have?
Well, in order to maintain good engagement and growth on my platforms, I have to listen to my audience. So I'm shied away from beauty when I realized, not shied away, I still do beauty content and I love beauty content, but when I realized that it's not performing as well anymore, I noticed that people were enjoying more of the lifestyle content, and I felt maybe that's because it was me letting them into my world a little bit more. So that was the point that I decided to change the direction of my content, or just try to penetrate other spaces. That's when I was like, okay, this is a business. I need to be serious now. So it's something that I gradually did over time. I didn't put too much pressure on myself, but I definitely became more professional about how I do things in my business, starting from the back end. For example, I had a fake email assistant. I was my own assistant, but because I wanted brands to take me more seriously, I was like, good day, kind regards Wendy. Wendy doesn't exist. And then I got to a point where then I got a manager, and that also really helped. And now I have an editor, for example. So you do things gradually. It's always about putting money back into your business and growing your business.
How you manage your following. First of all, it's really interesting that you have such a big following outside of Zambia that you developed from inside of Zambia. That's a very unique situation, and congratulations to you. How I do it is, since I was a teenager, I've always hustled my way through the music industry and wanted to grow. I've been obsessed with growth and paving my own path. There was no one that did this before me in Zambia, and there was no one that could help me because there was. So for me, what was more of an issue was not so much getting brand endorsements, it was getting record labels, the attention of record labels. In Zambia, we have 2 record labels that emerged recently, but neither of them focus on electronic music, and I wanted to think bigger. I wanted to think about international labels.
I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot from it. My question would be for everyone and how you deal with this. How do you deal with up-and-comers, who want to work with you? Someone who's just started, for you, Tintin, someone who's selling clothes, and they say, oh, can you please model for us, or Mukuka, a new up-and-coming artist who doesn't have the funds, the necessary funds to collaborate with you. How do you deal with such things?
I remember when I started modeling, there was I don't mean to name drop, but there was the Petita Mwansas, there was the Alice Rowlands. There was a lot of people that were doing it, and I reached out to a few people, just in the DMs, I slid in the DMs, and could you help me with this? Give me some tips and some pointers. Dollar response. So when somebody approaches me and asks me to work with them and help them, I always think of how hard it's been for me. It's been hard, and I don't know why in Zambia it feels like you must really sweat and push and break your back just to get minimal results. So I don't know how it is in South Africa, but in Zambia it feels like, my goodness, I don't know who must die for things to start moving quickly.
These aren't spaces that you can really thrive alone. And also, even if sometimes you're collaborating with someone whose numbers that you may feel aren't that high, at the end of the day, you are introducing yourself to a different audience, and they're also introducing themselves to a different audience. It's the same thing as working with a photographer. I need the content. He's going to get a mention from me. Yes, of course, if I approach someone, then I'm definitely going to pay for their service. But I'm always open to working with people where the relationship is then mutually beneficial. So don't be afraid to shoot your shot, as long as your shot is also realistic.
Mental health. How do you guys deal with mental health and just when you're creating, you're forced to create content, and then it's you're going through real life? How do you deal with that? And also, how do you deal with people objectifying you? Yes, you're human beings, but then you have fans, you have people who love you and admire you. But how do you deal with meeting someone and being objectified?
I started speaking to a therapist, not only when things are bad, but even when things are good. It's very important to have someone that you can check in with. And I think also you build thick skin as you grow. Like you get to a point where there's certain things that you can't let affect you. You just tell yourself that, you know what, certain people thrive off negativity. This person wants a reaction, and me reacting is going to make the situation bigger than it should be. Yes, we are human, and there are definitely things that people say that will get under your skin, but that's why it's also important to have a good support system outside of social media. Your audience can't be your only support system. You need to have friends that you can talk to. You need to have family members that you can talk to. People who can reassure you and remind you who you are and why you cannot be faced by an opinion of someone who has never even met you and does not know you. So that's so important. Have somebody to talk to, but also at the same time, learn to build a thick skin.
Yeah, mental health, it's very deep. Personally, I struggle with a lot of mental health issues, and I'm always honest about it with my audience. Depression, anxiety, and all of that. I won't go into detail, but there have been times when it's been really, really dark. And just as she said, if I didn't have a support system, I probably wouldn't have been here today because I would have given up very easily. So having a very strong support system is important. I do have a spiritual mother that I also speak to. She offers me spiritual guidance in the church front and stuff. I'm very Catholic, so yeah. And then on top of that, again, developing thick skin is very important, because there are days when you see a comment on one of your posts and it triggers you, and you just have to learn how to just brush it off. And then on the objectifying part, it's a huge challenge. Sometimes people will meet you and they see you as this influencer, this strong person, public figure, and so there's almost a sense of entitlement that we owe them our time.
To what I said earlier, it's also very important to put yourself out there once you are very much secure in who you are and you're confident. Don't seek validation from social media, because there are definitely going to be people who try and tear you down, and if you are not confident in who you are and you're not self-aware, then you will be broken. So it's important to work on yourself before trying to put yourself out there and seek validation from people online. And then another thing I wanted to comment on in terms of people objectifying us, I personally have taught myself that I am who I am, and there are people who love me out there. As much as if I'm having a bad day, I can't then take it out on you, because I don't know what impact I've had on your life, and I don't know if this is the first and last opportunity you have to meet me. So it's very difficult, especially when you're not in the mood. But you just have to be nice. Be nice to the person. Give that person a great experience of who you are. You can't have someone love you online and then when they meet you, they're like, oh, she was so horrible. I can't believe she's actually like that in real life. So yeah, unfortunately it comes with the job. It really comes with the job. But I love my love, so I love meeting them.
We have the same camera.
This is the best vlogging camera.
Yes. Yes.
Hi guys. Why are we not focused? Hi guys. Vlog. This is Kay. She's also a YouTuber from Zambia. Please subscribe to her channel. I'll leave her details down in the description box.
Talk nice to me, I'm in your head, I invest. That's a short-term fee, got it locked, I'm the best. Well, at least that's what I think. Give me props when I rap, pick you up when I leave.
Big bag, I'm in it, I get it, I got it. Going north, not south, cause I rise when I rap. Bars on flex, let me show you what I'm about. Young black boy from the Ville, I get my city clout.
Hi guys. Horses. That's for subscribe. If you not subscribed, share the video and continue to engage. Okay?
Yes, that part. Thanks. Hi Emma. Hi. We're live. Yeah. We're rolling. Guys, what's up? I'm back on the channel again. Back again. Like I never left. At least this time she's back. And it's not at the salon. A different setting this time around. So yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying this vlog as content. Premium. Yes. So you better subscribe to it. Okay. And that's it. Road to 11K. I'm so excited. Big stuff. So yeah, make sure you guys
meant to be. Then yeah, it's gonna be looking for somebody. She was right in front of me. Whoa. Came in and I took your shawty like a robbery. I was on my bullet train.